So you're thinking about running, but not sure how to take the first step. My name's Brian Patterson, and I'm here to help. And welcome to Brian's Run Pod. Well, welcome back to Brian's Run Pod, and welcome back to the second part of the discussion that I had with Caitlin Limmer. I hope you heard the first part of the podcast, which we featured a couple of weeks ago. Now, in the second part of our discussion, which I thoroughly enjoyed talking to Caitlin, and I hope she enjoyed talking to me, one thing I wanted to talk about was her new career as a coach, a mind coach specifically. I know she'd hate me for saying this, as a life coach. And one of the first questions I asked her in this second part of our discussion was about her going into schools. So without further ado, let's get into that. Because I know you go into schools, is that right as well?
So that is another arm of what I do. Yeah. So I do quite a bit of motivational speaking these days, based around. So I wrote a talk, called, which I've actually called 40 Minutes, based on being given 40 minutes to live. But it's also, I give the audience 3 life lessons that I've learned from my community predominantly, and I'm not going to tell you what they are now, because otherwise no one will.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Yeah.
No, and then and going into schools is just fantastic. I mean, I've been very lucky. Through COVID, I did a lot of speaking actually on Zoom, which is quite interesting. Speaking to an audience of 500.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yes. In my shed in the garden, talking to all these huge corporates, which was just incredible. But now I'm actually going in, and it's just amazing. Just dealing with beautiful hormonal teenagers, of which I have 2 or 1 now, and seeing them change from looking at me like, what have you got to give us?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. To sort of high-fiving me at the end.
Yes.
That is just like, wow.
So you've kind of connected with them.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So I tell them my story, and then I do some coaching on them. I do some anonymous coaching with them, as it were. So I get them to write things down.
Right.
We then have this sort of game, and I unravel some of what they're saying in front of them, and it's hugely revealing. It's a great demonstration of where teenage minds are at these days, post-COVID. Going through GCSEs and A-levels, you get such an insight, and by keeping it anonymous, you're hearing some really fantastic things. One of the questions I asked them, I say, if you had to choose a career today that you had to do for the next 40 years of your life, what would it be? And I say, I just get them to write down what they're just thinking, and it doesn't matter if it's not, not serious or anyway. One amazing young lady the other day, she wrote down, I want to be a skydiving instructor. And I was like, and she told me, and she put her hand up, and she was happy to, tell everyone that it was her. And I said, why is that? What is it about that? And she said, because I'm going to see people at their most vulnerable, and then their most confident. And this blew my mind. I was like, how amazing is that, to know that this career is going to, give you this, people at their most vulnerable and then their most confident. And that was why she was choosing to do it. She did admit that it probably the novelty would wear off after a while, But I just thought that beautiful little chink of insight, it blew my mind. It was fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, that does it. And also the boundaries that you break through. You are completely going out of your comfort zone. It sort of does kind of take me on to something else, and I know it's something else that you talk about is about getting people over that sort of imposter syndrome. Because I don't know if you know that I kind of went into tried to get into software development, but didn't seem to work out. But that's another story for another podcast, whatever. But and I know a lot of people who do go into that field do kind of suffer that sort of imposter syndrome. What advice would you give to people who do suffer from that?
I think the first piece of advice I would give is this is quite normal. It's great that you're admitting it.
Yes.
I don't believe that anyone doesn't have some imposter syndrome at some stage in their life. How can we go into anything new and not have it? I get imposter syndrome when I start. I'm writing a new talk at the moment. I've got a huge imposter syndrome because I'm like, who am I to be talking about this subject matter?
Yeah.
But it's just working through it. It's like we must just recognize that it's normal. And the way we decrease those fears is by doing the work. There are no shortcuts. And once you do the work, that huge imposter syndrome comes down and down and down and down. It's simple, really, but I think it's acknowledging that we all get it. I think those that don't admit to it, well, maybe that's a shame, but I can't believe that everyone, when they start something, doesn't think, oh, gosh, what do people think about me doing this? It's just normal, just normal.
And I've heard it described that the fact you are feeling like that means that you are growing.
Yeah.
So, I've heard that as well.
I think recognizing anything within ourselves that feels like it's stopping us in any way. As soon as we recognize it, as soon as we vocalize it, as soon as we crack on and deal with it, that's great. It's a very empowering thing. That's where the power comes back into us and the confidence.
When you go into the corporates, what sort of feedback do you get? What's it like?
It's with the corporates, it's not. I don't. It's not like with the students. I don't ask for immediate feedback. So when I was doing the corporates, it was just. I was being dropped into things like town halls as a bit of light entertainment. So it wasn't that they would go, they would give me a whole report on feedback. One of them, oh my goodness, one of the big corporates said it was like having Oprah Winfrey there. I mean, they were obviously well and truly into COVID then. They were all obviously thoroughly low and depressed if they thought I was like, but I'm just, I don't know. Again, I'm kind of lost for words on this because it's just I don't know. I still have to pinch myself, Brian, that I get the opportunity to do these things. So So feedback doesn't come in quite the same way as with schools. I'm asking for direct feedback. I'm asking the children, what will you take away from this? I suppose feedback from the corporate, I can see a lot of them follow me afterwards on LinkedIn or whatever, So that's an indicator, isn't it?
Do you see any different themes? Because I can't help thinking that, COVID has kind of put how do you describe it? Kind of like a full stop or a marker. And do you see any different themes? Because I know, let's say from, my daughter, she's in PR and she's working more from home and whatever, and there has been that transition to be working from home. But do you see any, themes like that working people, or any particular themes that you've come across in your work?
Themes of issues and that people are going through post-COVID.
Yeah, post-COVID. It could be mental health. It could be
absolutely,
or a realization that I need to do something more about my health, like go running or do this, that kind of thing.
All of the above. All of the above. I think the biggest one initially was social anxiety. That was huge. For some people, they got over it very quickly. Obviously, if they were working on the front line, they didn't. Very interesting. They just didn't even touch on it. Teachers, nurses, they didn't sort of really get as much of that social anxiety. But I've had runners that still, I can still see them a little hesitant in groups. If we take this, back to
interesting.
But back to running events as well, initially, and I think this year we'll see it really return to the norm, the pre-COVID norm. But, running numbers were definitely down in running events. And that was multifaceted. That would have been, being frightened of being with people. It would have been, strangely, we all thought everyone was going to get a huge amount fitter, but actually fitness dropped for a lot of people. So yes, social anxiety. Of course, I think personally, there's a huge area of lack of motivation now coming in. I think the working from home thing, of course, it's wonderful for some people, but for the 20-somethings, the younger end of the range, I don't think that's going to be a benefit to them. I think they need to be surrounded by older mentors. I think they need to have that fun environment and see how other people work. And, they've just been in a school or university, and then they're back to their bedrooms. And, for me,
I call it the water cooler effect.
The water, yes, absolutely. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So important, so important to develop that rapport with people, to learn how to be with people of different ages, to find those people that you go, wow, they're amazing. I want to be like them, and to learn from them. So yes, motivation, discipline, self-discipline. So I suppose that falls into the same sort of area and category as motivation. I think people's self-discipline, a lot of people discuss in coaching how, they're just not as fired up as they used to be. They're not getting things done. They're leaving things to the side. The goals, they're not signing up to events and they're just looking at, I don't know, getting a little too lethargic and wanting to find that rocket fuel again. But it's gone for some people. It's gone.
It's all too comfortable. It's all very well being at home, isn't it? And it's all a very comfortable environment. So, like you said, you become too complacent. You can, cook your lunch and you can do this and do that, whereas you're not going. There's not that boundary when you go to work. Do you agree?
I totally agree. I'm just in my head. I just made up an expression: the slipper effect. Everyone's too comfortable. They were all wearing half their outfit on Zoom, weren't they?
Yes.
They've got their nice shirt on and then their shorts and slippers underneath, which we all thought, wow, that's great. What's that expression? Too much of a good thing. Yes. Can be ... No, it isn't wonderful. Too much of a good thing is not good for us. If we eat chocolate all the time, we get sick. So yes, and I think that will be a challenge for people. And I know I'm very self-disciplined in some ways. My goodness, that I'm not. I still find, all of these things I can apply to my own life as well. But I know that I have the ability to crack on with it, or I will go and have a coaching session myself, or I'm only happy when I'm feeling a bit edgy on something in life, doing something a little bit that's when I'm happiest. Sort of.
So are you still running now?
Oh, well, there's a story, Brian.
Are you injured or?
No, oh, well, 51, perpetually injured. I had to give up running overnight in about 2015.
Right.
Literally overnight. I gave up. I stopped for 2 years. I thought it would be forever.
Right.
I had a very big seizure one day, and it was pretty horrific. And then did my back.
Are you epileptic or?
No,
right,
I'm not epileptic, but I had a massive, massive seizure based on pain and back issues.
Okay. And, sorry. Okay.
No, that's fine. Oh, I thought, it was basically some kind of, whatever fit it was. But but at the time, it scared me. With all my little other medical ailments, I just thought, I'm not going to carry on putting myself in an area of risk. I didn't want that to happen again, and my poor husband thought I'd died again. So, I just thought, you know what, maybe we'll bring it down a bit. So I stopped. It didn't stop me doing what I was doing. I took up various other things: open water swimming, cycling, la-di-da, and but now I'm back running, and well and truly into the menopause. So the body is different. Sure. The aches and pains are different. So I'm walking Brighton Marathon with one of my runners who's never run a marathon before. So we're what's called jeffing. So we're running a bit, we're walking a bit, and we're chatting a lot. And excellent. We are improving our lives on every run. So, I run a bit. I run as much as my body will allow me to, but it is essential that the high I get from running is like no other high. That fresh air, that nature, that, Brian, that mind blowing.
Like you said at the beginning, I mean, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, which is it's a bit weird since I'm doing a podcast about it. But it's I kind of it's just that getting out the door and whatever. But once I finished it, it's like I did a 6K this morning just to. But once it's finished, I do really enjoy that sort of that kind of endorphin rush and feeling of accomplishment, that kind of thing.
It's a game changer in your day, I think.
Yeah.
I always run / exercise before I have something very important, whether it's a medical appointment, whether it's a talk. I absolutely always exercise before a talk because my adrenaline gets so high that I want to just shave the edge off it and bring it down a bit. And it's brilliant, that, and it gives me that confidence. It just grounds me, to coin a phrase.
Have you been into your tech? I mean, are there particular, running shoes that you like, or do you use watches, apps, or anything like that?
Brian, I'm going to hugely disappoint you.
No, that's fine. It's okay.
I remember someone asking me about tech recently, and I was like, let's just end that conversation there, shall we? I respect it for others. No. For me, it's because I've never been a brilliant runner. I've never really cared about my stats that much. Yeah. I love knowing how far I've gone. Yeah. That's always a great high. Shoes, actually, yes, I love some new shoes. There's a company that has just brought out shoes for women only. Okay. And for me, they would work. So that's great. But No, I'm not a gadgety person particularly. I tell you what I love. My children bought me some, I'm going to call them the wrong thing now. AirPods, earpods,
Yeah. I've got
whatever
some.
they're called.
Yeah, AirPods. Yeah,
yeah, they're rather wonderful.
yeah.
So I do love listening to some stonking music.
Yes.
That really helps me.
Yeah. No, I go. I mean, I just think it's amazing that you can just go out with your watch and AirPods and be listening, and then that's, I used to carry a phone, but I don't anymore, and it's just, I can just switch between listening to podcasts or, music. It's just amazing.
It's fabulous, isn't it? I know.
So yeah, there was one other thing I was going to ask you, but it's just escaped my mind. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
You know what? I was looking and over our thoughts on this podcast and just earlier, and I think you said something about what are the mental health benefits?
Yeah,
and I think that was quite an interesting one. It got me thinking, how the benefits of running have been different for me over the years, and I mean, I started running late, so I was in my 30s. The benefits then, I was a young mum. I had to do it really early in the morning. The benefits were different. They helped me cope with just being a mum. And keeping me strong and happy and fit. Then it became sort of the challenge, marathon after marathon after marathon, and wow, and empowering. And, the children got older, and running gave me this confidence, more of a confidence. And now I use running to spend time with my favorite people. I use running, I mean, I've, menopause, but I'm very lucky. I don't have major issues with that. But yes, bones and joints, really thinking, I can feel the difference in my body. Therefore, I need to keep doing this. I need to keep oiling the cogs.
Yeah.
And, thinking about that, right where I started, thinking about that bone density again, because that is all changing age.
Especially 51. For women,
Yeah, absolutely. But it's not only that, with the menopause, of course, we need to do these things for so many other reasons. And, I don't know, I care for a couple of relations, and for me, it's essential for my sanity. Absolutely. Well, it's, that's mental health again. But, when you get difficult, challenging times, caring for various people, it becomes, it's like one's savior in many ways, isn't it? It's, it's hard, and people, it never gets any easier to get out of that front door, though. That's the fascinating thing to me.
I mean, one thing I found is that I don't, it's a small thing, as I kind of mentioned to Stuart, is that I as you get older, you tend to kind of nap or whatever, and when you get home from work or whatever. But if I go out the door, as soon as I get home, I'll put my kit on and I go up the door, and it doesn't happen because, and I think that getting the sleep cycle at the right time is also helpful. Getting out that, if I get good sleep, then I feel so much better the next day.
Yeah. No, and running, it's like a sort of, it's a magic tool. And that's why I went into it. I was just like, I've got to tell people about this. There are people that do not understand. And, and for me, it was so weird that I was preaching this.
Yes.
Yes. So weird. Yes. Because it was so not, I was a cigarette smoking opera singer. I literally was. I used to stand on the theatre stage door having a fag. And, and then I went into running. I'm a very naughty opera singer, but I was only young and stupid. So.
Yeah, you're allowed. You're allowed to be. But that sounds quite evangelical in a way. That I don't know if you are religious or not, but I know as a priest who said to me once, he said he was an atheist when he was a teenager, and it was like God was telling him, "Well, I've got plans for you." So you don't know where your path leads you. Whether
absolutely, and it couldn't. I still laugh at the fact that I'm at the helm of a running community. I mean, I hated running at school. We all hated running at school. What am I doing? But and I'm sitting here looking at my Peter James Clark, and he was my dear South African minister, and it's almost perfectly rounds this up, as you say, the evangelical aspect. We had so many conversations on our runs about life, and I'll leave you with a lovely little thing that we used to run along, and he would always see people. You'd see people when you pass, and he would always go, and I'm going to do a really bad accent now. He'd always go, good morning, hello, lovely to see you, hi. And I'd go, Peter, you know so many people. And he'd go, no, Caitlin, I just don't know if they've been in my congregation or not. And now I'm a bit like that, because a lot of people, if I'm out, they'll go, hi, Caitlin. And I'm like, oh, how do I know them from? Well, they're probably Bearcats. So, and it's, but what a privilege that is. And I think about him. I mean, literally, I have him staring at me the whole time, and he had such listening ears. And in my last conversation with him before he passed away, I always joked with him because he always listened to me, and it was almost like he was purring like a cat. He'd go, yes, Caitlin. And these wonderful listening ears. And I do put down going into coaching because of him as well. We just both shared this absolute love of people and wanting to see them live their best life, I suppose.
That's fantastic. Something to end on. Before we finish off, I mean, how can people reach you either on your socials? Do you want to give a bit of a shout out to that?
I think, one of the best ways is on my LinkedIn, Caitlin Limmer. I'm on Facebook. And also I'm on Instagram a little bit, but I'm not really down with the kids on that. I do it because I'm supposed to do it, but I'm Caitlin_Bearcat.
Yes.
I've got a website, caitlinlimmer.co.uk. So that's another good way as well.
Yeah. And the Bearcat has a website as well.
Yes. Right. It does. Yeah. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you very much. It has been a privilege to talk to you, and really thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. This is very new to me, so I'm learning all the time, and I'm really enjoying it. So, but anyway, thanks.
Well done.
Thanks. I hope you have enjoyed it as well.
I've really enjoyed it, and you see now your imposter syndrome has got even smaller during this session, hasn't it? Yeah. It's decreased. I can see it from here.
I know. I really love it. So,
well done, you.
Yeah, thanks very much. What an amazing story, and I really hope you enjoyed listening to the second part of the interview. Well, if you haven't listened to the first part of the interview, then please do. It really is truly inspirational, and maybe in the future we'll get Caitlin back on again in the podcast. As I said, thanks very much for listening to Brian's Run Pod, and look forward to talking to you next week. That's it for another episode, and looking forward to speaking to you next week with some beginner hints and tips about running. I just want to let you know that you can follow me on X, or what was known as Twitter, at Brian's Run Pod. I have just recently set up a Facebook page which is called Brian's Rompod, and I am on Instagram at Brian's Rompod. Also, my website is www.briansrompod.co.uk, where you can get show notes, or on whatever podcasting app you are listening to the show. Plus, all my episodes have chapter markers if you need to get to different segments of the show. Plus, leave a review, as it will help others find this podcast. Music is Happy Day by Stock Audio, not forgetting artwork by Alice Patterson. Till next week, thanks again for listening.